Fixie Rider. I'm a San Jose resident, and I'm also a board member of the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. So really appreciate y'all joining us tonight. If you aren't familiar already with Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition, SVBC is the only nonprofit organization advocating for the biking community here in Silicon Valley. And we need the community support to ensure we have the resources and the clout needed to be taken seriously. So as a member-based nonprofit, we rely on our members to keep us going. Plus, the more members we have, the more clout we have when working with our local leaders. So I'd like to invite you to click on the link in the chat, which is going to come up, to join SVBC. Emma Schlaze, pronoun she, her, is also joining us. She's the Deputy Director of the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. She'll be helping with questions. And if you have any issues, you could feel free to send her a direct message. Shout out to Shiloh. And I see Deanna here too, also from SVBC. And just a couple of guidelines to go over before we get started. So y'all are going to be automatically muted. And please stay muted so that we can have smooth audio for this meeting. We invite you to submit questions via the chat to everyone so that we'll be noting these down. We're also going to answer them in the second half of the program. And third, we invite you to go ahead and update your Zoom display name. And you can add your organization or your city and your pronouns. Just do this by clicking on the 3 dots over your picture. So why are we here? Well, Google's Downtown West plan is at the center of the stage tonight. It's a plan that envisions a central social place, one that acknowledges the physical and programmatic elements that make communities stronger. It represents a commitment to building resilient neighborhoods that capture the essence of San Jose and would bring significant new open space and public realm improvements, housing, including affordable housing, and infrastructure. So with over 3.5 miles of bike lanes and 0.6 acres of trails, over 1 mile of new walkways, Downtown West is designed to put people first. The project supports safe commuter and recreational movement through protected bike lanes, off-street trails, traffic calming measures, while the network as a whole reinforces local and regional transit connections and strengthens links to downtown and its surrounding neighborhoods. So our objectives for tonight include learning about Downtown West's vision for enhanced mobility and access, and to hear directly from the Google team. And we want to be in conversation with Google to help deliver a people-first project that creates a high-quality environment for people who bike. So before I introduce the speakers, I just want to go over how we're going to use our time tonight. So we're going to kick in with some polls at the start of our session. We'll do 2. That'll be followed by the presentation by the Google team. After that, we'll have Q&A. And then lastly, we'll do one more poll before we end our session. So now I'll just quickly introduce the speakers. We've got Jessica Graham, pronoun she, her, who is a community development manager at Google. Welcome. Marla Weinstein, pronoun she, her, is an urban planner who's focused on transportation at Google. Welcome. And Woody Hansen, pronoun he, him, is an urban designer at SiteLab Urban Studio. Welcome, welcome. And lastly, Drew Van Engel, pronoun she, her, is a principal at Nelson Nygaard Consulting Associates. So we appreciate you coming to speak with our members. And we have city staff also in our audience. I see Florin Lapustia and Eric Eidlin.
Hi there.
Welcome, welcome. And I think we have some more folks from the Google team, Bethany Windle, Tyson Tano, and Bhavesh Parikh. So thank you all for joining. So should we kick off our poll questions? Let's do it. All right, so we've got 2 questions for you here tonight. What's your relationship to San Jose? I live there, I work there, I visit there, or other. So go ahead and click your responses and we'll see those results pop up. I'm seeing 50, oh, whoa. So we're looking at over half of y'all live there, with a good, 30% working there, and plenty of visitors at 40%. So tons of folks here really invested in living, working in San Jose. And the second question was, prior to today, how familiar are you with downtown West? A good chunk of you are, moderately familiar. It's 30%, and same amount for slightly familiar. I think some of you are walking in with not much familiarity at all. So good timing to kind of kickstart our presentation so that you can get acquainted with this project. So it's a good time to hand it off to Marla.
Awesome, thanks, Melissa. Woody, are you able to share the deck? Oh, fantastic. And with that, if you don't mind going to the next slide, we just walked through a poll. Jess, to kick us off.
Thanks, Marla, and good evening to everyone in the Silicon Valley Bike Coalition. Thank you for giving us time out of your evening to speak with us. As Melissa said, and thanks, Melissa, for the warm intro. We really hope to have a conversation with all of you, and we're looking forward to answering your questions and giving you a brief overview of the project. What we'll cover tonight is a project overview and the features. We'll touch on the mobility highlights, of course, spend a great deal of time on our active mobility network, and then talk about next steps and have an ongoing conversation with all of you. So I'm really thrilled to be here, and I'm the Community Development Manager for this project. So it's my pleasure to work with Marla, who leads our transportation work, and Woody, and Drew and Tyson. We've got a big team of people here who bring different layers of expertise around transportation. And so we're all here to speak with you. As we move on to the next slide, I will just kind of give you an overview of the project features and what the project includes. It sounds like from the poll Melissa led that some of you are not familiar. And so I want to ground you in our vision, which is to really create a neighborhood that captures the resiliency and the essence of San Jose. And to date, over the last 2 years, we're still in the entitlements phase. We've done over 100 different community events. We've heard from over 3,000 people and gathered over 10,000 data points. One of the themes that emerged around our vision for Downtown West is that we are not creating a campus, not a financial district. This is not a closed place. Instead, we're creating an integrated network, a mixed-use plan that will really hopefully continue to adapt over the duration of the project scope and reflect the unique opportunity and the unique needs that make up the San Jose community. When you look at the map of our plan, it's really kind of clear as we advance to the next slide that we will be able to, oh, actually, not the next slide, excuse me. The process, I just want to, what if we go back just one more, just touch on the process. So for those of you who are familiar with development plans, you'll notice here we submitted our original application over a year ago in the fall of 2019. And that, of course, included our environmental impact report. We continued to do community meetings and discussion with the community, and that brought us to this fall, where about a month ago in early October, we resubmitted our documents to the city for review. The public comment period is currently open for community input. And you'll see this fall, we have a number of commission sessions and study sessions leading up until spring of 2021. City Council is currently slated to consider our application for approval. So we're still in the entitlements phase. And for those of you familiar with that, that means some questions we still have yet to understand or to develop, but we're working on the plans now. In the yellow, residential. In the blue, the office space. In the pink, in the center, we've got the active uses, retail, cultural arts, and educational spaces. And I should note that it's not just in the center there. Every single one of the buildings proposed would have a ground floor layer of active use, kind of a combination of retail, educational, cultural resources, so on and so forth. But undergirding all of that, you'll notice is our parks, plazas, and open space. So you see the green corridor there, which merges and aligns to the river and the creek. That's a huge part of our project, and you're going to hear some exciting things from Marla and our team around how the connectivity plays such an important role in really getting people as a core center, a foundational element to the project plan, which is at its core mixed use. That's the visual view. If we advance the next slide and look at by the numbers, we're really pleased to be able to make a commitment that this plan, as it's currently proposed, includes over 6.5 times the amount of housing required within the Diridon Station area plan. And so our plan, our project for Downtown West sits within the Diridon Station area plan. And we're putting forward 4,000 housing units, which we're excited to say in partnership with the city, over 25% of those will be affordable units within the DSAP. I talked a little bit about the arts and cultural spaces, so 500K square feet. It's a lot of opportunity for us to still continue to co-create with the community exactly what types of retail, what types of small businesses, what types of entrepreneurial resources from the community we can include. And then as we're doing that, we've made a commitment to have over 15 acres of parks and open space, which includes the 4.25 acres of expanded riparian habitat. Now, obviously, the office is a core issue. Google needs space for our employees, and we're still committed to the special, unique opportunity that happens in our business with office space. But it's important to note that over half of the developable land in this plan, which is 80 acres, is for non-office uses. And that's really a reflection of our values and our commitment to creating a space, as we said, a vision. It's not a closed campus, but that's a permeable, permissible space for the community to participate in. As we do all of these things, we're thrilled to say that we will be moving forward with zero net new carbon emissions in the project. And that brings us to our values. Some of you may be familiar with the concept of a 20-minute city. We did not create this concept, but we are fully invested in it. This is one of our guiding principles that governs the design standards and guidelines that you'll hear a little bit more about, creating these hubs of small cities within cities where people are able to walk or bike toward the amenities that reflect their needs and really meet on the streets, follow nature's lead. And as Melissa started with this evening, starting with people, right? This is all centered around a strategy of not just starting with the place and the design, but also really starting with the people and the programs and the partnerships like Silicon Valley Bike Coalition that enable us to have a mixed use plan that can be bold and can be different, and hopefully meet these aspirational vision that we've co-created based on over 2 years of community feedback. We're excited to get more feedback from all of you tonight. And so I'll try to keep it brief as we look at a couple of views here, a couple of the illustrations that give a lens and a look at what this might look like. These are renderings, illustrations. So this does not reflect final design. It just reflects a potential design. And you'll see that in the previous view, the water company there is a building that we're excited to dedicate to be a learning layer, a space for STEM education, a space for partnerships with organizations like Europe or the Tech Challenge for exploration and really centering around learning and the ongoing workforce development that our region continues to need. And then in the next view, you saw the immersive natural environment. And I know many of you are probably huge advocates of connecting people and nature and really looking at the mobility solutions that are able to do that. And so we'll really be able to, in this view, see kind of in the very back foreground, the train station, the Diridon Station there. The vision for a view like this is really to demonstrate to the community our desire to, in a sustainable way, connect people in immersive natural environments. And then all of that comes together in the last view and creating a place that's part of San Jose and really making sure that we're able to, I think, my favorite part of this view, I don't know what yours will be, is the artwork. And we're creating a center where local artists and community members are able to really take their vision of a place and co-create that together. And so there will be spaces within the plan that are kind of like coffee shops or restaurants that are really able for children to gather, or live music. We've heard people really would like to see a lot of live music in the project, or opportunities for that in parks and open spaces and plazas. And so in conclusion, and before I pass it over to Marla, that's a little bit of an overview of the plan at its core. I did see a couple questions, so I'm going to ask Melissa and our team if they wanted us to answer those questions now or wait until the end.
Maybe we could just take a brief moment to answer some of these are just clarifying questions. So one, does Google own everything that was shown in the previous slide? And then two, can you just quickly explain the 20-minute city concept?
Yes. So in the axonometric slide where you're looking at the land use view, that is a reflection, and my colleague Bhavish may be able to provide additional detail here. But that is, I think, one back to the axon, that is a reflection of the areas that Google, the land that Google has acquired. The 20-minute city, it's a concept, and we don't have an illustration for this, but the idea is that maybe if you start at any part of the project, within a 20-minute window, you would be able to find an assortment of resources, dry cleaners, a coffee shop, a educational learning center, a childcare center, that most or many of the needs that are happening, you wouldn't have to move much past that 20-minute window of a 20-minute walk to be able to access those resources. And so that would reflect just like keep creating a sense of a community within a community, if that answers the question.
I'm seeing Peter Ross nodding their head, so looks like that's a good clarification. So let's keep moving.
Cool. I think Marla is going to present this next section.
I think she was just rejoining. I just saw her come in through the waiting room. So just give her 1 minute if you want to keep talking.
Hi, I'm so sorry, I'm having okay, great. You can hear me and hopefully you see me. So thank you so much, Jess, and thank you for walking through that vision for Downtown West. And we recognize that mobility and accessibility for all and across modes really has to be at the heart of Downtown West. So I wanted to quickly walk through the mobility principles that we think will hopefully get us there. So first, we want to enable a people-centric place. So to put that very simply, we want to prioritize people and not cars. So we envision that Downtown West streets and sidewalks and right-of-ways can all be an extension of the public realm. Sorry, next. So we were originally drawn to San Jose because there is just such excitement at Diridon Station, from Caltrain electrification to BART extension to local bus, light rail. It really is going to be a hub. And so our goal with Downtown West is that transit is accessible throughout the project, and that active mobility becomes your first, your last, your nth mile connection. And that leads me to, what are we connecting to? So with Downtown West's proximity to Diridon Station, the project really becomes a gateway to the surrounding neighborhoods, and in particular, downtown San Jose, but also becomes a gateway to the region as a whole. Next. But we also want to make sure that we are providing those connections and access points within Downtown West, within the project. So Jess walked us through the project's land use from, it includes retail to residential to active uses. And these are all, such great resources, but we have to make sure that people can access them and reach them. So we really aim for a mobility network that unlocks access to nature, housing, and economic opportunities. Next. And lastly, one of my favorites, and if you're at this meeting on a Tuesday, I think maybe one of yours, but transportation is at a really exciting time, and transportation is constantly evolving. So we want to make sure that our project is flexible, that we can incorporate emerging mobility and technologies in the future, but that we can also adapt to changing needs and contexts as we go. So underlying the transportation principles that we just walked through, Downtown West is also committing to these transportation principles. So just to draw your attention to the top left of this chart, today the city sees about a 76% drive alone rate, and that's about on par with the regional drive alone rate. And what that means is about 3/4 of folks are driving by themselves when they're traveling. And what this means is that there's more cars, there's more traffic, there's more pollution, there's more stress for cyclists. You know the drill. So within Downtown West, the project is hoping to flip this a little bit. And the project is ultimately committing to reducing our drive-alone rate 35% as transit comes online in the area. So this commitment is very much aligned with the city's own ambitious goals of reducing the drive-alone rate in San Jose 40% by 2040. So how do we get there? It's a big goal. We, again, are hoping to leverage the transit improvements and expansion in the area, but we are also looking into a range of transportation demand management, or TDM, options. And we have seen success with TDM in our other office locations in Sunnyvale and Mountain View. And TDM includes, a wide range of programs, from secured bike parking to transit benefits to reduced parking to first last mile connections, meter bike programs. I promise I won't read everything on this slide, but it's all on the table. Next. However, we also recognize that TDM alone can't bear the brunt of shifting travel behavior in an urban center like Downtown West. So we want to make sure that we are designing and implementing a network that encourages and supports all modes of travel, and in particular alternative and active modes of transportation like walking and biking. So we want cyclists to feel seen and protected, that you can get where you need to go without facing gaps in the network or trail that you're using. We want to make sure that pedestrians have space within the sidewalk and on off-street trails, but we want to make sure that the overall right-of-way is scaled appropriately. So you're not playing Frogger, you can safely cross the street and experience. Lastly, this network needs to become for ability. So I hope I've said, oops, did I lose connection? Nope, okay, good. So I hope I've sufficiently hyped up the network, and I will pass this off to Drew, who is a principal at Nelson Nygaard, to walk through this in a bit more detail.
Great, thank you, Marla. Yeah, this part of our presentation will focus on how the project intends to connect people with parks, open spaces, and community destinations that Jess and Marla so eloquently described with this active and robust transportation network. Many of Google's sites are fortunate to be located near near the region's regional trail network, with Downtown West providing direct access to the Los Gatos Creek and the Guadalupe River trails. However, when you zoom into this view of the Downtown West site, which is obviously west of downtown for your pleasure in orienting the map, this map runs north-south. And when you zoom into the Downtown West site, you see that there's a key gap in the Los Gatos Trail that exists. And this project has the potential to bridge this gap with facilities that are suitable for all ages and abilities. The project will extend the Los Gatos Creek Trail on each end from both the north and the south further into the site, and also provide a near-term protected bikeways in the middle to fill the remaining gap. And the city has a long-term vision to complete the Creekside Trail itself for a full complement. But in the meantime, the project's Los Gatos Creek Trail and the protected bike lane connections complete a primary north-south connection. And now the map has been oriented so that north is to your right with Woody, if you can circle over the SAP Center and Diridon Station. So thank you. This project's Los Gatos Creek Trail and protected bike lane connections completed this primary north-south connection from the left to the right on the screen from downtown west to surrounding neighborhoods. It also provides connections to 15 acres of parks and open space within downtown west and access to Diridon Station or downtown via the existing facilities along San Fernando. This rendering here shows how the protected bike lane connection will nestle into the built form and connect the Los Gatos Trail to downtown west, Diridon Station, and other places. The design intent is to offer a safe and connected experience suitable for all ages and abilities with a low level of traffic stress along the entire connection. And at this part of the presentation, we're going to turn our focus to on-street bikeways themselves. As you can see here on this figure, the existing on-street bike network goes through downtown west with most routes going east-west to downtown. However, very few of the bikeways provide protected all ages and abilities facilities. Today, the Diridon Station area is served by Class 2 on-street bikeways along Bird Avenue, Stockton Avenue, Park Avenue, and Almaden. And the San Fernando Street protected bike lane is an important commuter route. Downtown West plans to substantially improve the connectivity for people biking. We're designing a dense protected bike network that entices people working, living, and visiting downtown West to choose riding bikes or shared mobility devices because they will be the most convenient and enjoyable ways to get around. Go to the next slide, thank you. This dense network will include a variety of treatment types, including enhanced pedestrian crossings, sidewalk widenings, the Los Gatos Creek footbridge, and protected bike lanes throughout, as was shown on the previous slide. As much as possible, we're rebuilding a gridded street network through street extensions and rebuilding of one-way arterials into two-way complete streets. We're also centering the project on connections to existing and future transit, including Caltrain, VTA, and BART. And together, this program of projects will reconnect and right-size a people-first street network that was broken up by rail, river, and vehicle priorities in the past. If we can go to the next one, thank you. As it relates to the overall transit and active transportation network, the project creates can you go back one slide? Thank you. I just want to see that animation again. As it relates to the overall transit and active transportation network, the project creates many new and fine-grained connections for people walking, including paseos, shared streets, and right-side sidewalks with furnishings and trees that foster engagement with the neighborhood. And then finally, on the next slide related to the Bikeway network, this slide illustrates the addition of new or upgraded bikeways to the existing bicycle network within the project area. It provides, as I said, a dense and redundant network that offers many options for discovery. And importantly, as part of the EIR process, in addition to the network which we showed you, the project will also fully construct or contribute funds for several projects in the greater area, fully funding 5 projects: a protected bikeway connection along Azureas, a footbridge over Los Gatos Creek, and at-grade trail crossings on Santa Clara, multimodal gap closures at Taylor and Coleman, and sidewalk extensions on Azureas and Delmas. And as in contribution to future projects, the Downtown West will contribute funds, including funds towards a multimodal connections at Bird and I-280 and protected bikeways on Bird. The experience of the street network by bike is intended to provide separation and physical protection from vehicles as much as possible, both along street segments and at protected intersections. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to Woody from Site Lab so he can tell us a bit about that.
Perfect, thanks, Drew. Overall, all the streets are designed to support the functioning of all modes. So each street is going to be different. From wider streets with greater capacity, like you're seeing on the left side of the screen with Bird Avenue, to the more intimate, slower, and in this case, shared streets, like you see on the right with South Montgomery. So to give you a sense, I'm going to do a quick before and after sequence of a couple of the streets that are proposed here in downtown West, as well as in between them, talk a little bit about the standards and guidelines that you would see in what is essentially the equivalent of our permit for the Downtown West project, which is the Downtown West Design Standards and Guidelines. And the focus here is that that Downtown West Design Standards and Guidelines builds on all of the great progressive work by the City of San Jose and the DOT through the Complete Streets Design Guidelines. So those two documents are actually layered and both apply to the project. So Bird Avenue is the one we'll start with. So this is at the south side of the site, which you can see in the key in the upper right. It's basically located between San Carlos and Park Avenue. This is a high volume street and is a really important vehicular connector that provides critical highway access for the entire neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods. It's also very wide. So it has 6 lanes, which really exacerbates, which is really exacerbated by the wide building setbacks in addition to those 6 lanes, which essentially surround the sidewalks and the pedestrians on islands amidst asphalt. So the proposal for Bird Avenue is to rebalance the street. We maintain 5 lanes, which is significant and allows for that access that we were talking about vehicularly. But we also significantly expand the space dedicated to the pedestrians and bikes. Importantly, additionally, the new buildings are brought forward to address the street, and street trees are added to frame a safer and more engaging streetscape experience, provide shade, and also enhance the connection to nature throughout. In addition to the protected bike lanes that will increase safety and buffer active mobility, we are also committing as part of the project to over 3,000 bike parking spaces, and we've targeted mobility hubs at every transit stop to sync up active mobility and streetscape elements with transit ridership, which, as Marla mentioned in the beginning, is really critical to getting that drive alone rate down. What this would include are things like transit shelters with real-time arrival information, bike share, parklets, and wayfinding information. You'll see some of that in some of these images that I'm showing. San Fernando, this is looking west down San Fernando after you cross Autumn Street today, is a really critical east-west connector, and it delivers a key approach to the station from downtown, and will also for the future station, which the city has already prioritized for bicycles. And so the proposal for San Fernando is to maintain the function and maintain that narrow urban streetscape, but most importantly, narrow what the vehicular throughway is and prioritize that space for pedestrians and cyclists, and also to enable some trees to be planted and other plantings. So the street will maintain that narrow profile, but prioritize that safe crossing all the way to Diridon Station and under Diridon Station eventually. And so a couple of the streets that we've talked through so far are really kind of in the middle of the block. So they're typical conditions of the street, but we've also taken particular attention to the intersections, which are also prioritized in the Complete Streets Design Guidelines that the City of San Jose already has. So intersections that are either with a Class 1 trail or shared use path, or with a Class 4 protected bikeway, are required to employ certain enhancements at those intersections to ensure safe crossing and support the Vision Zero initiative. Montgomery Street is one that we're really excited about. We've shown you some protected bikeways already, but Montgomery Street is really interesting because today it's going to be transformed into one of the most intimate streetscape experiences in the project. But today is really, for all of you who have been to Diridon Station and exited going east, you know that it's relatively dangerous. People really fly down this corridor because it's a one-way going southbound toward the highway. And that's dangerous in particular because of the number of bikes and bikers and pedestrians that are crossing at an uncontrolled crossing at the VTA tunnel. So the goal for South Montgomery Street is to completely transform it, turn it from one-way into two-way, as Drew was mentioning earlier. And also, because we're extending Cahill Street to the north and the south, shorten South Montgomery Street to be between Santa Clara Street and San Fernando, and south of there being pedestrian only. And the streetscape itself will become a shared street. And by that, we mean cars are able to pass, but the focus is on pedestrian movement. So what that means is the street is entirely designed like a contiguous sidewalk. Of course, there are still distinctions through trees and bollards and other street furniture to help make sure that people understand where cars are as they go through. But this is an idea that's been implemented around the globe, and San Jose has already started to implement their own in Park Avenue as an example. And so one of the other components of the streetscape that's really essential both in the shared street model and also in the rest of the streets in the district is to be thinking about the flexibility of what we typically see as on-street parking, but is really should be looked at more as curb management. And so what we're calling this area is a dynamic lane. And dynamic lanes can be adjusted both for peak time of day or could be adjusted over time. And that could mean that in some instances, they're really critical for vehicular movement, such as right after Sharks games and the SAP Center events. But other locations might be better suited for bulb outs and curb extensions or rideshare pickup and drop off or food trucks or parklets. Or, as Marla was alluding to earlier, the next best thing in technology and transportation. So when we put it all together, the streets really create the fabric that knits together all the parks and places in downtown West. As you've seen, each street is designed to be safe, walkable, and has a sense of nature brought in. There's a ton more from the Downtown West Design Guidelines and Standards that I could go into, but I'm going to skip the 400-page summary. And instead, definitely recommend checking out the YouTube page where there's a deeper explanation of the full document. And I'll also hand it back to Jess, who can reorient us to where that document sits in the overall entitlement process.
Sure, thanks so much, Woody. That was, I see a lot of active chats, and I just want to say I've been monitoring all of them. I was like, wait, maybe we should just talk them through. So I think the team, just so you all know, we saw your questions, and I think we'll close out here and go into answering those together. But just again, to reorient where we are in the process, we are still in the entitlements phase of the process. And so you see kind of in the bottom right here, tomorrow, in fact, there's going to be a Parks and Rec Commission session study. It's more informational, but our team continues to partner with the city and make sure that we are in close collaboration around answering questions at the various commissions and creating this plan together. In addition, you may be interested in seeing on the next slide, I believe we have, yes, the documents. So for those of you who are policy wonks or you just want to read it for yourself, by all means, help yourself. We have, of course, the draft environmental impact analysis report, the draft EIR, which has been released. All of these have been released as of October 7. If you do a quick search, you might see our video. We have a video. I can drop it into the link here. It's 38 pages long that gives an expanded version of what Woody just shared with us and Drew shared with us on all the chapters, not just mobility and transportation, of course, but on our building design, on our sustainability work, on our approach to parks and open space. So those documents are there for the public's purview, and definitely continue to be responsive to any questions that will be submitted. As we look forward to the future, I think just wanted to continue to let the team know and let everyone here on tonight's call who's taking time out of their schedule as we move forward on the next slide, that there is definitely a desire to remind you that this is not a single building process. Okay, so with all the things you've heard, we've got about 80 acres of detailed design, 30+ buildings, over 10+ years of phased construction. And then the part you're most excited about, I'm sure, is the street improvements. So we've got a lot of corrections on street improvements because of this reality, because it's not just a building that gets approved by a body. and its multiple dynamic opportunities for design and execution, our process moving forward on the next slide is a hybrid process. And so the single building process, it works if you're just designing one building, but we just discussed that's not what we're doing. A specific plan process is a different approach that cities often take and choose to use, and that provides some general controls. But what we're proposing is a hybrid process. The Downtown West Design Standards and Guidelines combine governing strategies, standards and guidelines is what they're called, because that's what they do. They provide standards and guidelines on how the rules interact with each other. And it provides a really, really great opportunity for flexibility with future priorities, future advancements, future technology. I mean, what if we have like a hoverboard that gets designed and patented in the year 2025? We could not create the governance structure for that now, but we definitely want to be in a position with our standards and guidelines to respond to industry norms as they develop. And so none of us have that glass ball to see what's happening in the future. And so this hybrid process really enables the city to provide the right oversight and compliance structure while also enabling the developer to respond in a dynamic way to make sure that the designs and the infrastructure put forward are cutting edge. And then I think just a note here, we can drop these into the chat as well. You can find additional information on the city's website. So it's the City of San Jose has a website where it articulates all of the documents, and you'll want to go there. If you'd like to make formal comment, you would go to the city's website to make sure that you're noted in the formal review. And then of course, the Downtown West Project website. This is a place I was just chatting with on the chat feed. We will release blogs and conversation series. We just closed a survey. We'll probably be following up with a new one, inviting the community to share their thoughts around what types of programming we should have in our public spaces, what types of events, what types of spaces would facilitate and enable those events. And so we encourage you to go to g.co/San Jose. And you can sign up for updates and be kept abreast of the Downtown West project as you see fit. I think that's all we had to present to you. I'm looking at the clock and I'm seeing the chat button blink, so I'm going to stop talking and turn it back over to Melissa.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of really good engagement on the chat so far. Some of it has been sort of partially responded to by the team, but maybe it might be good to hit some of the high points again. So let's start off with some questions about trails. So this comes from Mikhail, and maybe this is a question for Drew. Is there a plan to connect the Guadalupe River Trail and the Los Gatos Creek Trail? And then can you say, oh, and then there's another question here. The Los Gatos Creek Trail actually ends where it meets Willow, leaving a long gap without a trail before you get to San Jose. Is there a plan to complete that trail? That's from Jillian. And then from Shiloh, can you say a little bit more about the specifics of the connection between the two trails? There's an existing plan and alignment. Will that change or improve? And an improve usually means keeping it a trail, trail-like instead of going on street.
I'm going to start and ask for backup from either Marla or Tyson. PRNS, the parks, and maybe somebody from San Jose from PRNS. But our project is building in the gap connections which we described, and working with PRNS to implement their vision in the long run.
I can add to that. This is Bethany.
Thank you, Bethany.
Yeah, so maybe it would help to, this is Bethany from Google. I represent parks and open space, and I'm in a lot of communications with PRNS at the city. And the trails are included in the dedication of city parkland. So that's sort of why I can help answer this question. But it might be a good idea to pull that graphic back up if possible, because I think it might help with the visualization, but I can give a similar type of response that I gave in the chat. And that's, while the project doesn't provide a direct connection, to the Guadalupe River Trail, it does include an at-grade controlled crossing of Santa Clara Street. And that provides a safe and visible connection between Los Gatos Creek Trail to the south with the existing trail bike network through Arena Green. So that's sort of the simplest answer to that. But you might have a little bit more detailed questions, and maybe the graphic could help.
Bethany, is this the graphic that you were looking for?
Yeah. Let's see if I can zoom in. I'm on my phone here. Great. So if you zoom in, you can see where the Guadalupe River Trail is next to Arena Green. You can see where the project boundary is and where the connection is made at Los Gatos Creek. You can see with the graphic there, and there is a planned crossing to cross. And then there are on-street bicycle facilities that would go along South Autumn, where you see there's a green dash. Yeah, so it continue on, and then you could potentially cross the West Santa Clara, that other intersection. I don't know if the on-street folks want to talk about that, but those are sort of two potential connections. One on street and one with the trail. Hopefully that helps with that question.
Yeah, I think it does. Thanks, Bethany. So let's move to a question from a particular guest who asks, how does the project seek to welcome a diversity of expressions? And how do you intentionally ensure a cultural activity center that welcomes people of all incomes, gender expressions, cultural, and racial backgrounds? My question.
I love this question. I'll take a stab at it, and I'm sure others on the team may want to as well. Melissa, it's so important to note that this is foundational to our strategy and our project design. It's one of the reasons why we've made such a point of talking to the community. This year, I don't want to use the unprecedented year word, but it has been unprecedented. And so what we're looking to do as we move through the fall and into the winter and the new year is to continue to redouble our efforts in talking directly to the community and inviting feedback. And community can be a really broad word, right? So I think your question was much more nuanced around like specific types of expression. And I think that's one of the things that we really want to invite feedback from the community around. If there is anyone out there who's interested in connecting with us, we're open to that. At the same time, we're continuing to make sure that the plan as it's being developed reflects a diversity of voices. And I think that's reflected in diversity of age, diversity of accessibility, gender expression, diversity of race and ethnicity, even things that may seem intuitive, like, oh, of course, we're going to work with small businesses and local businesses to San Jose. You have to say that, right? And so that's one of the things that we're committed to doing is saying that out loud, is that local businesses will be included in our project, and that we do want to make sure that a diversity of people feel welcome. The other thing that Bethany or Ricardo may decide to touch on is there is an idea we're exploring around a sort of community-led governance model for parks and open space. So I'm going to stop there and let them jump in if they would like to do that, because I think that's a really interesting model that we're in conversation around.
I don't know if, can you all hear me? Okay. I'm not sure if Ricardo wants to jump in, but yes, I don't have a lot to add. We're still very much in discussion with the city on varying types of parks and open space management and operations models, but it's just something that's to be noted that we are working on and understanding how complementary public and private open spaces can work together to provide a network of publicly accessible open spaces for everyone to enjoy and use, and to be maintained and operated in a way so everyone can enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Melissa. It's been a while since we last connected. I think for us and behalf of the entire project team, if we would have failed if people from San Jose don't see themselves somewhere within that plan, regardless of ethnic background, gender, sexuality. And it's why we're investing so much into the community process over the last 2 years, and with Jessica and the team support, even doubling down on some additional engagement around how to define some of the spaces, places, and programs within the project plan itself. Someone should be able to see themselves spending the day without having to spend any money within this project, or the retail should reflect the diversity of Greater San Jose. So we want to make this an extension of the downtown. We want to make sure that this is a part of San Jose. In order to succeed, we need to make sure that it's reflective of the people who live here today, and will hopefully enjoy this space.
Thanks so much for jumping in, Ricardo. Yes, it's good to see you. I think that also starts to answer some of the questions that Atisha had about supporting small service businesses, about like street food and temporary retailers. So it sounds like that's something that is not excluded from this project.
Not at all. When we think about the network of parks and open spaces, as well as the ground floor retail, there's almost an entire kind of entrepreneurship model that one could create to test something from a kiosk to pop-up, invest in a commercial kitchen that could be shared by a bunch of local retailers, to how they potentially may evolve into occupying a traditional brick and mortar space within the plan. So that's one of the many things that we're excited is that it's so large and there's a diversity of program that it could allow for an entire full service capacity building approach to how do we invest in small businesses. And I think you're on mute, Melissa.
Oh, thanks for noting that. I appreciate your response, Ricardo. I just wanted to also acknowledge we've got a spectrum of questions that are coming up here. So streetscape, what are the benefits of an active streetscape versus a more defined streetscape?
And maybe someone from our design team could speak to that.
Yeah, Ricardo, I can jump in, and then Woody, I might pass it along to you. And I guess to clarify the question a bit, Melissa, were you saying active versus defined streetscape?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So I think in some ways they overlap in a bit. So our idea of an active streetscape is the sense that, your typical sidewalk zone can really be expanded to meet all the needs of our pedestrians and cyclists. So, it can include raised bikeways, a bike buffer, a furnishing zone that has landscaping, or other amenities within the active streetscape. I think when we start to talk about a defined or undefined streetscape, that talks to, where Woody was heading with shared streets. So we use South Montgomery as an example of a shared street where, it could be curbless, and we have a little bit less definition between all the different modes. Every mode can use the shared street, but we still want to make sure that we're maintaining that definition in terms of safety and making sure that there's clear pedestrian pathways throughout the shared street. Woody, I don't know if you want to jump in with our design standards and guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it, but I would say it's about experience and it's about safety. And I think it's not that we don't have defined areas for people to bike versus walk versus for trees to be planted. Those are still included in what we're calling this active streetscape. But by thinking about it comprehensively, we're able to optimize the separation between people moving outside of a vehicle and people moving inside a vehicle. And so that's basically the strategy that we've taken to the project in the name of safety and also experience.
Great, I appreciate that response. Before we ask you some questions about SAP and the sharks, I wanted to get to Martha Ryan's question about, can you talk a little bit about approaches to homeless folks who may live throughout the plan area today?
Yeah, Melissa, I can start, and Ricardo may want to hop in with additional context here. I mean, certainly our space, homelessness is a citywide issue, and it's a regional issue, and it's an issue that's really important to address and to acknowledge. It's one of the reasons why we are doing our commitment around housing, 4,000 units, and some of those being 25% of those within the DSAP being affordable. Having said that, even with that contribution, it's not going to eradicate a systemic issue that plagues many cities all across the nation, unfortunately. And so we're still defining the governance structure and the rules in partnership with the city to make sure that all people feel included and safe in public spaces, and the right space to do that so that people are safe, people have access to resources, and people are able to be connected to support that they need. I don't have a lot more specific information at this part of the project, but I can assure you that our intention is certainly to create a space where all humans can occupy that space with equity and fairness.
Thank you. So let's go to this question about SAP Center and the Sharks. Can you talk about your neighbors, the SAP Arena, and their inclinations toward the future of San Jose? And in particular, can you talk about their parking needs and how that jives with this vision? There's also another question about how major events may interact with the expanded bikeways that are right by the SAP Center, or whether there's a conflict there.
Hi, this is Bhavish from Google. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Bhavish.
Okay, great. Sorry, I wasn't able to get on screen, but I can answer the first part of the question and then probably turn it over to my team on the second part related to the bikeways. Look, as far as the Sharks and the SAP Center are concerned, I think it's very much part of our vision. We're very excited to have them as neighbors. We've been in communication, myself personally, with them for quite some time, talking about parking and access and circulation, both with them and the city. So as it relates specifically to parking, our parking will be such that the majority of it will be below Google buildings. That would be also then accessible for SAP Center events. And that's something that we've been working through with the Sharks and with the city and others as well. So that is how we're essentially managing the parking with them. And with respect to access, we're working on how our different entry and exit points for those particular garage areas will function relative to getting to the places that the fans will need to get to as they come to the arena, as well as they leave the arena. So again, very excited to have them as our neighbors. We've been in quite a bit of communication with them, and we'll continue to do so over the course of time.
All right.
Thanks. Oh, sorry, Melissa, I can just tag on to the last part of that question
Okay.
in terms of the bikeways on Santa Clara.
I'm going to try to sneak in another question.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Bhavish, for running through the parking and the relationship with the Sharks. And I just wanted to say that in terms of the bike network that we were showing on screen, the bikeways that were included on Santa Clara refer to existing or planned bikeways from the city. So our project is not proposing any expanded bike infrastructure on Santa Clara in front of the SAP Center.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, we've got a public bike parking question that maybe we have just a moment for. What is public bike parking going to look like? Is it just racks? Is it e-lockers? Are there cool fancy storage options? What is that? What does it look like?
So I can jump in one more time on this one if you're not back on bike parking as a whole. The project is at a minimum, including 3,290 parking spaces. And this is in the city's municipal code requires that amount. So with it down into short-term and long-term requirements. So the short-term parking, to put it simply, is going to be that publicly accessible parking that's included in open space or within the sidewalk, or even in dynamic lanes, as Woody was referring to. Whereas the long-term parking will be that more secured bicycle storage facility, whether it's a bike room or an enclosure or an individual bike locker. So the project itself, we haven't quite developed the specific locations or distribution or typology of the bike parking. So we are open to suggestions and thoughts on the matter.
And I just might add there by reference to the design guide that mobility hubs are also a part of the project definition. And so there could be snazzy bike parking there, yet to be defined.
Snazzy, that's in the guidelines, right? Specifically. Awesome. Well, this is probably a good time to wrap up and just want to express our appreciation for the Google team to help our members just kind of get past the surface of the vision and the goals and the beautiful renderings and get a little bit into the deeper details on things. So thank you to the Google team. We hope that the folks who are on this call are better equipped now with the ability to advocate for a high quality bike environment that they want to see, that y'all want to see, and that we all stay in conversation with the Google team, with the city, and that you all let us know at SVBC where your priorities are. So we invite you to continue to learn about the project, stay connected to the timeline, keep in touch with us, and then learn more, and of course, join SVBC. So with that, thank you so much, and come back to see us again.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.